for spine-chilling Uber encounters, terrifying tales of hidden dangers and haunted rides revealed. Lisa, a 32-year-old single mother, braced herself for the night ahead as she slid into the driver's seat of her worn-out sedan. The quiet suburban neighborhood, usually a beacon of safety, wafted unsettling whispers of danger tonight. She had heard the urban legends, tales of Uber fares that turned into nightmares, of drivers that faced horrors beyond comprehension. Tonight felt different, darker. Her first few rides unfolded normally. An elderly couple reminisced about their grandchildren, their laughter cutting through the silence, haunting Lisa from the shadows of her own mind. A college student, barely keeping his eyes open, darted into the car, mumbling about a party. Simple, light banter. This was her routine, the lifeline that kept her anchored. But as she drove through towns, the stories of missing persons nagged at her, making her grip the steering wheel more tightly. The darkness outside her windows began to creep in. Then, the phone pinged. A new fare. A remote area she'd never visited. A desolate patch of town that vibrated with the kind of dread she thought was only reserved for horror movies. The streets narrowed, the houses loomed like watchful sentinels, and an icy shiver ran down her spine. She'd heard enough from her neighbors to know those stories, they weren't just myths. As she pulled up, a man emerged from the shadows. Late 30s, slicked back hair. But that smile, it felt sinister. He slid into the back seat, a chilled air swirling between them. "Thanks for picking me up," he said cheerfully. But Lisa could hear the undercurrent in his voice, the hidden malice. "I hope your kids are doing well." Her heart raced. How did he know their names? Panic fluttered in her stomach. He continued with small talk, but each word took on an ominous weight. He navigated through her life with unsettling familiarity, lightly mentioning her kids' favorite toys as if he'd been lurking just out of sight. "You know, it's a tough world out there, especially for single mothers," he added, a knowing grin dancing on his lips. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The hairs on the back of her neck stood tall. He leaned in closer, voicing details about a neighbor's scandalous secret, and the local legends of cover-ups entwined with her own family's name. In that moment, realization crashed over her like a tidal wave. She wasn't just a driver taking a fare. She was part of something grotesque, a twisted tale she didn't want to unfold. The streets blurred past her as she accelerated, the landscape shifting into a dark maze of indistinct shapes and collapsing buildings. She could feel his gaze sharpen, assessing her. "We can't get lost, you know," he uttered, slicing through the tension like a knife. Panic seized her heart, each beat pounding out a rhythm of fear as her mind raced with ways to escape this nightmare. He was no mere passenger. Desperation swallowed her. She had to break free. But every route she took felt like leading her deeper into an unending snare. The chilling stories of her neighbors flashed before her eyes, intertwining with her present horror. Would she unearth a truth that would shatter any sense of safety she thought she had? The night constricted around her like a tightening noose, darkness laughing as she spiraled into an unknown that could consume her whole. What would she discover as she drove further into the shadows? The answers lay waiting, veiled in the ominous stillness. The tension suffocated the car, thick as fog. Lisa fought the urge to scream, to shake off the horror riding with her. She felt his presence wrap around her like an unwanted embrace, an oppressive weight that threatened to pull her under. "Where are we headed?" she forced herself to ask, grateful for the distraction. "Just keep going straight. I'll let you know," he replied, his voice smooth yet laced with something darker, like syrup tainted by poison. The way he leaned back against the seat, so relaxed, made her skin crawl. It was as if he knew she wouldn't dare challenge him. She glanced in the rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of his eyes, cold, cruel. Shadows danced across his face, amplifying the sinister smile that remained plastered on his lips, a facade hiding a monster that clawed just beneath the surface. Every turn seemed to deepen the uncertainty. Familiar streets morphed into forgotten alleys, the kind of place where the chill didn't just come from the night air. Damn it, where was she? She had to focus on getting out. "What do you do for fun?" he asked, his tone nonchalant, almost friendly. Her heart raced as she replied, eyes darting back to the road. "I don't really have time for fun." She tried to keep the tremor out of her voice, but it crept in like an uninvited guest. "Not even when you're driving around? No one to share it with?" Each question fell like a heavy stone, pushing her deeper into dread. Her mind screamed for escape routes. She recalled every self-defense class, every cautionary tale she'd heard, but could that really help her now? The sense of impending doom rushed in, warping her perceptions of reality. She wanted to cry, to crawl into the warmth of her home, but the reality around her shuttered it all away. The car began to sputter. Horrified, she felt the engine groan under the weight of their collective tension. "No, come on." She gripped the wheel desperately. "Looks like it's your lucky day," he chuckled darkly. A classic car breaking down in the middle of nowhere. His voice oozed delight, and it made her skin crawl. The shadows outside faded into obscurity, swirling around them like a storm. Her breath quickened. Just hold on. I'll get us through this." But as the engine choked, her panic surged. "Why do you keep bringing up my kids?" The smile faded from his face, but his eyes burned brighter, a fire ignited by her fear. "Because they're right where you left them, watching you." Shivers coursed through her spine. "What do you mean?" His laughter echoed against the night. "Oh, Lisa, the stories you thought were just that. They're all connected, you know, to you." Each word he spoke felt like a lash, tightening her grasp on reality. Just then the headlights caught movement in the distance. Dark figures lurked along the side of the road, shadows clutching at the vehicle like hands of the damned. The hair on her arm stood at attention as dread coiled tighter. Lisa pressed the gas, but the car merely sputtered again, wheezing pathetic sounds. The darkness closed in, a relentless tide threatening to swallow her whole. Desperate, she twisted in her seat, adrenaline surging. This was it. A decision needed to be made. "I refuse to be part of this. You can't control me." His grin returned, wide and eager as he leaned forward. "Oh, but you're already deep in it. Let us see how well you play the game." As the figures approached, she felt the suffocating weight of the night close in around her, leaving her gasping for air. What had she gotten herself into? Who were these people? The moment hung heavy, suffused with uncertain tension. Lisa gripped the wheel tighter, preparing herself for whatever came next. Would she uncover the truth? Or would it consume her entirely? With sudden determination firing through her veins, she decided what she had to do next, but the night had its own plans. The engine's sputtering finally gave in, a dull wheeze followed by silence all-consuming. Lisa felt the weight of despair press down harder, as if the dark road itself were trying to swallow her whole. The figures ahead grew clearer, shadows shifting and whispering, a movement that sent icy tendrils creeping up her spine. "Get out," he said, as though reading her thoughts. "They want to meet you." "No," she replied, a breathless gasp, panic clawing up her throat. "Not now. Not like this." He leaned closer, his smile stretching unnaturally. "Don't fight it, Lisa. Don't you want to see your friends?" With each word her pulse raced faster. Friends? Were those figures familiar to her? Didn't he matter? The road ahead was a waking nightmare. She needed a plan, something to break these chains binding her in terror. But as she peered into the dark, her thoughts scattered like leaves in the wind. The figures started to step into the beams of the headlights. They seemed human, their outlines shifting, faces obscured in shadows. A rush of wind swept through, carrying a stink of decay. Lisa clamped her jaw tight, fighting an urge to gag. "Open the door," he said, the command sharp enough to slice through the suffocating gloom. No, she couldn't believe how defiant she sounded, even as her hands quivered against the steering wheel. "What do you want from me?" "Oh, it's simple," he said, his tone taking on a sing-song quality. "They want to play. And you're the prize." The shadows edged closer, their whispers growing, a chorus of honeyed lies and half-formed threats. Fear gripped Lisa's heart as she realized the truth. A collision of fate and horror had led her here. There was a crack against the window, hard and sudden. It jolted her back to the present, the unyielding tension resurfacing, choking her. She whipped her head around to see one shadow with a hand raised, fingers poised as if ready to snatch something unseen. "Let us make this fun." He clapped his hands together, reveling in the dread that filled the air. Adrenaline surged in her veins. This was it. If she was going to get out, she couldn't let fear dictate her actions. She took a moment to collect herself, her breath coming quick. "All right," she said, her voice steady despite the thunder roaring in her chest. "I'll play." But would she survive the night? What rules did the game follow? With sudden clarity she reached for her phone, fingers trembling, praying for a signal but nothing. Just dead air. She could feel him watching, could sense his anticipation building. "Is that your escape plan?" He chuckled. How quaint. In defiance she pulled the car keys from the ignition. A tiny act of rebellion. "You won't win," she whispered more to herself than to him. The figures were almost upon them now, faces finally coming into focus. They looked like her neighbors, people she almost recognized. But there was something off. Death hung thick around them. Their lips stretched into unnaturally wide grins. "Welcome home," one of them called, the voice low and twisted. Home. This wasn't home. The concrete walls of her life were disappearing, replaced with this suffocating nightmare. She could practically taste the dread swirling in the air. "Make a choice, Lisa," ordered the man beside her, the amusement in his eyes now replaced with something darker, something almost hungry. The shadows danced in the headlights, closing in, curiosity mixing with malice. She had mere seconds to decide. And then, just like that, the headlights flickered. Darkness swallowed the light. Lisa steadied her breathing, heart racing. What would happen when the lights came back? Would she still be alive? Then a voice, eerily familiar and soft as silk, echoed through the void. "You can't run from your past." What was the truth? And what hid beneath the surface? As the light began to flicker back to life, clarity surged with it. Would she face her demons or let them consume her? The looming revelation awaited her. Obscured and shadowed expectation. What choices lay ahead in this dark déjà vu? Light pierced through the blackness, but it was too weak to provide comfort. Shadows loomed longer in the bedazzled glow, stretching and twisting. Faces once again contorted into unnatural grins, eyes alight with a malevolent joy. Lisa felt a rush of heat wash over her, a combination of fear and an overwhelming impulse to escape. With a swift, desperate motion, she yanked the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. The world outside was no longer just a haze of shadows. It now pulsed with an undeniable presence, a freight train of terror bearing down on her. "Let her go." A voice rang out amid the quiet chaos, slicing through the air like ice. It belonged to one of the figures, a man she almost recognized, though his face was twisted beyond recognition. "You're playing the wrong game." The man beside her shot a glare at the interloper, veins of anger piercing through his mask of enjoyment. "You don't get to interrupt Alex. This is her moment. She has to choose." "Choose what?" Lisa shouted, panic lacing her voice, the instinct to fight clawing its way to the surface. "Choose to die." "Not die. Play." The man's smile wavered slightly, like a paper mask ready to give in to the wind. "Isn't that what you wanted? A step out of your boring life?" Lisa's heart thundered wildly. Was that true? Her mundane days had felt suffocating, but why would she play along with something so grotesque? That mirror of sin twisted in her mind, reflecting guilt and shame. She was meant to be better. But then, through that chorus of shadows, a figure drifted closer, gliding with an elegance that seemed unsettling. "You think this is a game, Lisa? You really don't know what you're playing with." The creature's eyes locked onto hers, revealing buried memories, like shards of a broken mirror. Friends from her childhood, each one smiling but not quite right. As they swirled in front of her, she felt herself being dragged back to times she wished never existed, the pain laced within their innocent faces. They whispered her name, drawing closer. "Remember us? You left." A surge of urgency shot through her. If they knew her, they could truly hurt her. She had left them behind, guilty remnants she didn't wish to confront. The headlights flickered again, and for a split second, she saw it clearly, a fleeting chance to break the cycle. "Let me go," she screamed, rage igniting her tightly coiled fear. The pressure in the air thickened, heavy like a wet blanket. "You have to choose, Lisa." The man beside her shouted in frustration, his voice distorted, echoing as if from another world. In that moment of weightlessness, Lisa's eyes darted to the steering wheel. It was her lifeline, her escape. She needed to act to reclaim some semblance of control over this nightmare. With adrenaline sparking through her veins, she grabbed the passenger door, hurling it wide. Instantly the cool night air rushed in, carrying the smell of damp earth and rotting leaves. The figures shrieked, their faces contorting into horror as they scattered like a disturbed colony of insects. Lisa stumbled out of the car but found herself paralyzed by a rush of despair. Countless paths lay before her. Some beckoned with vague familiarity, while others loomed dark and foreboding. Which way would lead to salvation? Would she even find it? Time is running out. The man beside her snapped, his voice back to that hypnotic sing-song. What will it be? Face us or run? Shadows flitted around her, his words collecting somewhere deep inside, digging at the gnawing fear. Did she really want to face them again? The darkness drew near, but Lisa's heart raced with defiance, determination flaring as she shouted into the void. I won't play your game anymore. And then time stretched oddly, the world around her shifting. She felt a flicker of hope, a way out, but something shifted in the air, and a voice whispered just beneath the surface, chilling her blood. You'll wish you had. Breath caught in her throat, dread clawing back. What awaited her in the shadows, just beyond the reach of sanity? With adrenaline flooding her system, she took a step forward into the unknown. Where would it lead her? And behind her the man chuckled, a sound that carried an unsettling promise. You have only just begun. The earth felt soft beneath her feet, the ground shifting as Lisa moved away from the detestable car and its taunting figures. The shadows darkened, swirling around her like a cloak intent on swallowing her whole. She turned her back on them, pushing herself toward whatever lay ahead. Instinctively, she felt the tug of dread worming its way into her thoughts, whispering reminders of her past. But she couldn't look back. She would not turn around. One foot in front of the other, she stumbled down a narrow path choked with weeds, each step echoing in her chest, ringing in her ears. Clenching her fists, she resisted the urge to scream as the whispers grew louder, filling the air with echoes of laughter. Familiar voices taunting her, reminding her of the mistakes she couldn't bear to face. Run, Lisa. You always run. One mocked, a sing-song cadence reverberating through her mind, echoing the chilling promise of the man behind her. Stop, she shouted, panic flooding her veins. She couldn't let them get to her. If only she could reach the edge of this nightmare. Ahead, the trees loomed like grim sentinels, their gnarled branches twisting into grotesque shapes under the moonlight. With each step, she could feel the darkness creeping closer, an unseen presence that seemed to breathe down her neck. The air thickened, heavy with an unseen weight, turning invigorating freedom into suffocating obligation. And then she froze. A flicker of light caught her eye just up ahead. A dim glow struggled through the trees. Hope flickered in her chest, a small flame igniting her determination. She could reach that light. It might mean safety, a way out of this nightmarish game. Rushing forward, she burst through the tangled vines, stumbling into an open glade. The moment she set foot in it, her breath hitched. The light emanated from an old lantern, its warm glow stark against the night's chill. Surrounding the light, a ring of smooth stones, each carved with symbols that seemed to pulse with vibrant life. What is this? She whispered, intrigue mingling with dread. The stones hummed softly, resonating, beckoning her closer. A movement caught her eye. Shadows slithered on the periphery. Panic surged again as the other figures approached, their eyes glinting with cruel delight. It's time, Lisa, the man crooned, his twisted smile widening. Will you join us or will you fight to the end? The choice is for you to make. Lisa's chest tightened, her heart racing as she stepped back. You said I could leave, she cried, the desperation leaking into her voice. Yes, but you must make a sacrifice. It's always a choice, isn't it? His tone, dripping with amusement, twisted the knife deeper. Everything comes with a price. The lantern flickered ominously, projecting eerie shadows onto the faces of those encroaching. Memories of joy warped into despair, faces she loved turning to masks of horror. They too held her in their gaze, reflecting the pain she had tried to escape. The lantern's light pulsed again, a heartbeat echoing in the suffocating silence. She felt drawn, compelled to step forward despite the fear clawing at her throat. What was the price? Her heart? Her soul? No. The word tore from her lips as if expelled by some primal instinct. She backed away, refusing to be caught in their web, but their laughter rang out like a thunderstorm. "There's no escaping your past, Lisa," one shouted, their voice both familiar and foreign. Just then, a scream ripped through the air, a piercing sound that rendered the laughter into silence. It was a horrified wail that felt cold and familiar, echoing the fragmented memories of childhood friends. She recognized it. "Alex!" she gasped, the name escaping her in disbelief. The trees shuddered as if responding to the cry, and suddenly, the ground beneath her feet trembled violently, shattering her moment of clarity. The stones cracked, hairline fissures snaking through the circle as a deep rumble roared beneath. The darkness surged forward, a wave of shadows amplifying the despair. Lisa dug her heels into the damp earth. How could she escape this? The figures loomed closer, the man's voice mixed with the howl of the wind. "The choice I assent over. Are you ready to face what you've buried?" With mounting terror, Lisa glanced towards the flickering light behind her, then back at the darkness swallowing her friends. What did she dare to sacrifice? In that heartbeat, she knew she could either stand against the past or drown in its depths. As the ground split and the glade erupted, she felt the pull of the shadows drawing her in, dragging her down. Would she find strength in her fight or succumb to the darkness? As thunder echoed through the trees and the lantern's glow dimmed, Lisa stood at the brink of oblivion, breath hitching, waiting for the inevitable plunge. The ground cracked wide open, sending roots and dirt splintering into the air like jagged teeth. The darkness surged forward, swallowing fragments of the glade as if hungry for Lisa's terror. She felt the warmth of the lantern's glow flickering against her skin, a beacon fighting the encroaching shadows. It was all so chaotic, so overwhelming. Lisa's heart pounded erratically, each beat echoing in the hollow of her chest. The figures closed in, their features twisting with malicious glee. She was running out of time. "Alex!" she cried again, desperation clawing her voice. The shadowy presence responded to her plea, elongating, stretching, thicker than the night itself. "Lisa!" A voice pierced through the gloom. Not just any echo, but Alex's voice, full of raw urgency. "Get back. Don't let them take you." She spun around, seeking him in the chaos. There he stood, silhouetted against the darkness, his image flickering like the lantern. Her breath caught, hope igniting within her. But he was still so far away. Could she reach him before the shadows pulled her down? "Stay out of it." The man's laughter pierced the air, a vile sound that reverberated in her bones. The once familiar faces blurred, morphing into a sinister mass, each mouth twisted into an ominous grin. "You'll only make things worse." The ground continued to shudder beneath her, sending more ripples of terror through her spine. Memories whirled up like ghosts, her past bubbling to the surface, taunting her. Images of time she wished to forget blended with the chants of the onlookers enveloped in shadows. "You think you can run back to him?" someone hissed. "You left him behind." "No," Lisa cried, a wave of anger surging through her. "I can't go back. He is my friend." But the laughter echoed on. The darkness around her pressed closer, thick and suffocating, swirling in iridescent clouds that made her stomach churn. The illuminated stones around the lantern warped, their symbols twisting cruelly. "Sacrifice him. It's what you must do." The man spat these words, his face grotesque with triumph. "No, I won't hurt him." Rage mixed with fear, propelling her forward. She dashed toward the lantern, her fingers reaching out as if to snatch its light and wield it against the creeping dark. If she could just hold it long enough, but the shadows didn't let up. They coiled around her ankles, tugging, pulling her back. It was as if they understood her fear, feeding on it, growing stronger. The air grew colder, numbing her thoughts. "Fight, Lisa. Please." Alex's voice rang clearer through the cacophony. "Don't listen to them." The shadows hissed, whispering lies. "You don't need him, you can be free." They twisted enticingly, promising her an ease to the guilt that weighed her down like a stone. The lantern flickered. "No," she screamed, shaking her head violently as memories flooded back, moments filled with joy, laughter, and promises of loyalty. A bond forged through love and loss. The ground heaved again, the stones vibrating, and she knew in that split second the truth. "There's a cost," she yelled, her voice raw and fierce. "If I must choose, I'll fight against this darkness." With that, she lunged towards the lantern, feeling it pulse against her fingertips. A warmth enveloped her, spreading through blood, igniting a second wind of courage within. The shadows recoiled, shrieking as if they were burned by the light. No, you can't escape. The sinister figures shrank back, their faces contorting in unholy rage. Stay with me, Alex, was her frantic prayer as the light brightened, driving the darkness further away. But just as the shadows withdrew, Lisa felt their pull, a vicious tug at her heart. She couldn't let them take him or her. Then in an instant, she grasped something cold and hard at her feet, a shard of stone. In desperation, she raised it high, ready to strike the darkness with this newfound weapon. But before she could plunge it into the ground, the earth beneath her erupted again. In that fraction of a moment, the world split, the entire glade teetering into an abyss. She had only a heartbeat. Would she cling to the light or plunge into the darkness forever? Lisa's breath quickened in her throat, her heart racing as she teetered on the edge of annihilation. What choice would she make when the ground gave way beneath her? The dark abyss swirled below her, a never-ending void that beckoned with menacing whispers and promises of eternal silence. Heart racing, Lisa felt the intense heat of the lantern slip through her fingers, her grip faltering as the ground beneath tightened its cruel embrace. What was happening? Panic surged through her like electricity, a desperate urge to act before it was too late. Lisa! Alex's voice cut through the chaos again, piercing her thoughts. Remember why you're fighting. Don't let them win. She heard the darkness reigniting its vile laughter, and it tightened its grip around her ankles, dragging her further toward the chasm. Each moment stretched painfully as she clung to the lantern, its warm glow competing with the biting cold of despair. Suddenly, the earth shifted violently, sending her heart into a frantic rhythm. The lantern's light flickered, glowing precariously as shadows clawed at her, grasping like desperate hands around her legs. You can't keep running. You haven't faced the truth, they hissed, their voices blending into a confusing echo of past failures and regrets. No, Lisa shouted, doubling down as she summoned every ounce of strength. She forced herself to remember those moments shared with Alex, the laughter, the bonds formed through every battle they had faced together. They could conquer this. Summoning her bravery, she planted her feet firmly, clenching the shard of stone with trembling fingers. She raised it, trembling with determination. The shadows recoiled, fury flashing in their eyes. Your friend will pay the price for your stubbornness, they hissed, coaxing her with deceptive promises of power and liberty from pain. You don't decide my fate, she shouted back, her voice trembling but fierce. With one swift motion, she thrust the stone down, hoping to make contact with that pulsing darkness. The ground shook, the air crackling as the light exploded from the lantern in a blinding arc, splitting the shadows like a flash of lightning smashing through a stormy sky. The echoes of the once familiar voices fell silent, eyes turning wide with fear, their forms shrinking back into the blackness that birthed them. Lisa stumbled, adrenaline surging, the warmth clutching her like a lifeline. Keep the light alive, Lisa. Please. Alex cried out again, his silhouette flickering against the remnants of the darkness. With a sudden rush, a whirlwind of emotion enveloped her, the weight of despair thinned, hope bursting through as the swirling shadows began to retreat. The ground beneath her stabilized, but the haunting laughter still hummed in the air. It was not over. Fighting against the numbness creeping back into her limbs, she took a step back towards Alex, feeling the light pull her in with undeniable force. I'm coming, she yelled, her heart, once again, ignited with a fierce resolve. But just as she reached out, darkness leapt from the edges, snatching at her throat, clawing at her heart. You will return to us, Lisa. There's no escaping what you've done. Sick dread twisted in her stomach. What had she done? The skies darkened, smoke veiling the stars, swallowing the flickering lantern. Alex screamed her name, but it was drowned out by the consuming void. She was caught between loyalty and betrayal, the weight of her choices pressing hard on her chest. Lisa! The scream faded, but his figure lingered, pleading, pulling her towards light and solace, urging her to push against the tide. The shadows recaptured the fleeting warmth, tightening their hold once more. With every ounce of her energy, Lisa lunged forward again, grappling with conflicting choices, fear licking at her edges. Would she give in to darkness or profess her unwavering loyalty to Alex? Each moment hung around her neck like a noose, tightening with her every breath, pulling her toward damned uncertainty. Then, a deafening silence fell. And then came the laughter once more. It was deeper, richer, reverberating with a dreadful promise. Game on, they taunted. And in that instant the ground shuddered violently, giving way once more. What awaited her as she tumbled deeper into the abyss? Lisa plunged into the darkness, a spiraling descent that swallowed her screams whole. Time vanished, seconds stretching into eternity. She felt weightless, suspended in a limbo where the whispers of the shadows clawed at her mind. "You've chosen poorly," they murmured, each voice dripping with malice. "This is just the beginning." Then thud, she hit something solid. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs, sending shockwaves of pain coursing through her body. Groans echoed around her, pooling deep within the gloom. As she gathered her thoughts, Lisa realized she had landed on a jagged surface, sharp stones digging into her skin. The lantern winked weakly from her side, its glow flickering like a dying heartbeat. Get up, she urged herself. The darkness whispered promises of despair, and she couldn't let it in. Panic surged anew, flooding her veins, but she clenched her jaw, refusing to succumb. Lisa staggered to her feet, heart pounding wildly, flicking her gaze around. Shadows twisted into grotesque shapes, laughing in their unseen corners. "Where are you, Alex?" Each breath felt pulled from her chest, heavy and thick, as though she were underwater. And then she saw something, a glimmer. Just ahead, a sprawling mass formed in the shadows, shimmering faintly like broken glass. A desperate hope flickered in her chest. "Is that another lantern?" She breathed, the glow growing brighter, fighting against the oppressing dark. But as she stepped forward, an eerie cackling surrounded her, growing louder. "Foolish girl. Don't you know those who seek light here only find darkness?" The shadows coiled tighter, solidifying, pooling into words. "You aren't alone in this abyss, Lisa. There are others who have lost everything." Out from the shadows crept figures, twisted and broken faces distorted with grief and rage, souls trapped in eternal torment. They reached out, clawing for her with skeletal fingers, mouths gaping in silent screams. Despair flooded through her, chilling her blood. "Join us, Lisa, let go of your fight," they wailed. "The truth lies in surrender." "No, I will not," she cried, yanking back from their grasp. The gleam of the distant light pulsed with urgency, drawing her nearer, promising salvation, but voices, familiar ones, began to rise from the depths. "Lisa! Lisa, help me!" Each call pierced through the cacophony, sounding like Alex. "Don't leave me. Lisa, please." Her pulse quickened as guilt wrapped around her heart like chains. She had to save him. Would fighting for him be her downfall? Or was it her only chance? She hesitated, feeling the pull of the shadows fighting to reclaim her. A sudden explosion of light flickered from the lantern. It bathed the surroundings in a brilliant glow that momentarily pushed back the darkness. "Hold on, Alex. I'm coming." With a leap of faith, Lisa dashed toward the shimmering mass, adrenaline surging through her veins. As she reached for the distant lantern, the figures screamed in furious desperation. "Dontigo! You will suffer like we do." They lunged at her, shadows swirling menacingly. But she was fueled by hope and guilt, the lantern's light burning her fear away. In a breathless sprint, she grabbed hold of the pulsating glow. A surge of energy shot through her, and images flashed before her eyes. Alex's smile, the warmth of their friendship, the laughter they once shared. But just as that warmth enveloped her, the floor began to quake violently. The abyss roared in outrage, and she felt herself being yanked back, torn between the fleeting light and the insatiable darkness. "Lisa!" Alex's voice cut through the chaos, now more desperate than ever. The earth beneath her feet cracked and groaned, shadows rising, forming a wall between her and the light. "Lisa, help me, Alex." As she screamed, the ground split wide beneath her. The darkness surged upward. Something unseen was waiting for her. And in that moment, with her heart teetering on the edge of hope and despair, clarity struck like lightning. She had to make a choice. "Where do I go?" she screamed fiercely. But the answer was lost in the chaos, swallowed by the shadows as they lunged forward, dragging her down once more. What lay below could either be salvation or the worst nightmare yet. The darkness closed around Lisa like a vice, pulling her deeper into the void just as she felt the warmth of the lantern flicker in her hands. She gasped, wrestling with panic and despair, the echoes of the figures clawing at her soul. "There's no way out." they threatened, their voices melding into a twisted chorus of sorrow and rage. But deep inside, an ember of determination burned. She could still hear Alex's voice slicing through the chaos. "I'm here. I won't let you go." His unwavering strength called to her, lifting her spirit above the despair surrounding her. With a desperate roar, Lisa thrust her palm against the lantern, feeling its warmth pulse against her skin. Light exploded from the vessel, cascading over jagged stones and the tormented figures that clawed and raved. They shrieked in unison, their twisted eyes narrowing as the light burned through the shadows. "Don't look at them," they screamed, voices breaking with fury. "I'm not afraid of you," she shouted back, her voice trembling yet fierce. It engulfed her like a shield, cutting through the suffocating uncertainty. She took a step, then another, retreating from the dark figures as they shrank back, hissing at the glow. "Lisa!" The familiar voice struck a chord deep within her, thrumming in her heart. She spun around, scanning the darkness for Alex. "Where are you?" And then she saw it, a flicker in the chaos. A feeble light, perhaps a mere candle, wavering in the distance, but it was enough to send her heart racing. "I'm coming." With every ounce of strength she had, she sprinted towards it, dodging shadowy hands that reached for her, longing to pull her back into the void. The ground trembled violently underfoot, stones splintering as she ran. "You'll regret this," the shadows snarled, their voices merging into a single chilling echo. They jostled around her, attempting to siphon her hope. But she was fueled by the vision of Alex, fighting against the growing fear that seeped into her bones as she neared the light. The air thickened, charged with an unseen force. Her resolve wavered momentarily as she glimpsed a figure ahead. Alex was there. His hands stretched out, beckoning her closer. "Lisa, hurry. I need you." "Alex!" she cried, the name bursting from her lips with the power of a million fears. She broke into a desperate sprint, the jagged stones of the ground ripping at her feet, but she didn't stop. He was so near, yet the shadows coiled menacingly behind her, screeching in rage as the light flickered ominously. Suddenly, something cold grasped her ankle, dragging her backwards. She fell to the floor, the lantern skidded away. "No, let me go." The grasp tightened around her, icy fingers sending a chill through her spine. She struggled against the force, fighting against the despair that swept over her. "Lisa! Grab the lantern!" The urgency in Alex's voice broke the fog of fear. The glow danced in the distance, just out of reach but beckoning her forward. With a surge of strength, she kicked against the darkness and pulled herself free from its grasp. The shadows wailed their defeat, hissing as she crawled towards the lantern, her heart racing, lungs burning. She reached out for it, the light illuminating her bloodied hands. With desperation she clasped it tightly, its warmth suffusing her like sunlight. "Now come to me." Alex's voice was a lifeline, pulling her from the abyss. Lisa rose, adrenaline propelling her forward just as the ground crumbled and groaned. She moved toward his flickering form, shadows swirling like storm clouds behind her, but before she could reach him, a deafening roar burst from the depths of the void, and the very ground beneath them shuddered violently. A fissure opened wide, threatening to swallow everything whole. "Alex!" In that moment of chaos, a colossal shadow emerged from the darkness, towering over everything. Eyes of icy blue glared at her, and she felt the weight of ancient terror bearing down. With the lantern in her grasp and her heart pounding fiercely, she realized she had only moments before everything consumed her. The light flickered ominously. Could the lantern truly guard against such monstrosity? Or was this their final stand against the darkness? The ground quaked violently beneath Lisa's feet as that towering shadow loomed, a malevolence coiling through the air like smoke. Its icy eyes seemed to bore into her soul, revealing fears she had long tried to bury. All the whispers, all the doubts crashed over her like a tidal wave. Panic clawed at her throat, threatening to choke out any remaining courage. "Lisa! Focus on the light." Alex's voice resonated, cutting through the chaos. That spark of hope surged back, igniting her resolve. She tightened her grip on the lantern as if it could shield her from the darkness that sought to claim her. With every ounce of strength, she took a step forward, fueled by the need to protect Alex, to protect herself. The figure roared, shadows writhing like a storm come alive. In that instant, Lisa felt the shadow's cold breath wash over her, a suffocating wave of despair trying to pull her deeper into its abyss. Shadows writhed around her, but she refused to succumb. "You don't own me," she shouted defiantly. Raising the lantern high, light blazed from the lantern, cutting through the oppressive gloom. The darkness shrieked, an otherworldly sound that made her bones rattle. With each step closer to Alex, she felt the very air shift, the oppressive weight of despair easing just a little. "I'm coming." Alex's face lit up as the light from the lantern illuminated their surroundings, revealing terrified expressions of the trapped souls in the shadows, longing for release. The malevolent figure hesitated, retreating slightly, its icy eyes narrowing into slits. Lisa felt the warmth of the lantern surge, challenging the darkness with an undeniable force. "Sacrifice!" the creature hissed, summoning strong winds that howled around them, but she stood her ground. "I will not sacrifice anything. I choose to fight for my truth." The shadows screamed as her determination crackled in the night, the power of light pushing against the encroaching blackness. She dashed forward, running the last stretch toward Alex, their hands inches apart. "Together!" she gasped. Just as their fingers brushed, a screech pierced the air, and the ground erupted again. Lisa stumbled, catching herself before she fell, but she could see Alex hovering just out of reach. Fear spurred her on. "Hold on. We just need to reach each other." With the lantern's light blazing behind her, she dove forward, desperate to close the distance. The shadows, furious and dark, surged up, trying to consume her completely. Forcing everything into her legs, she leaped, grasping for his hand. "I won't let you go," Alex shouted, reaching out desperately. With one last burst of energy, she lunged, grasping his hand as their fingers intertwined. Together they ignited a bright burst of light, the warmth pushing back the shadows like the dawn breaking the night. The shrill screams of the darkness echoed around them, retreating, fading, tearing apart. The overwhelming coldness withdrew as the lantern erupted into a powerful beam, illuminating everything until the shadows disintegrated into nothingness. Lisa felt a rush of warmth surrounding them as they were enveloped in the light. Slowly, the darkness dissipated, leaving behind a soft, golden glow. They stood in a tranquil glade, the remnants of the horrifying labyrinth washed away. Lisa clutched Alex tightly, the relief washing over her, a tidal wave of safety surrounding them now. The faces of her past, drawn from the shadows, faded like smoke. No longer did they have power over her. She could breathe again. "We did it," she whispered, turning to meet Alex's shining eyes, the comfort and love making her feel whole once more. "We did," he replied, relief flooding his features. They stood together side by side, ready to face a new day, leaving the horrors behind. As the first rays of dawn broke through the trees, brushing their skin with warmth, Lisa finally felt the weight lift. The darkness could not reach her again. They had fought and they had won. But the experience hung on her like a lingering ghost. It was their shared strength that had triumphed, and she wouldn't forget. She turned then, glancing back at where the darkness had been. Freedom now waited, glimmering beyond the horizon, and Lisa was ready to embrace it. With hearts lightened and hope renewed, they started walking toward the sun, each step carrying them farther from the shadows and closer to the life waiting to be lived. And as they disappeared beyond the trees, the truth whispered into the dawn: no past was too dark to overshadow the power of choosing light. Now you need to subscribe immediately to our channel, so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the good vibes rolling. Flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about this epic conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who also need to feel the pulse of this incredible adventure. Only true fans understand how much these actions support our channel.